Hi everybody. We are receiving today Mr. Dean Journeaux, President and CEO of New Millennium, one of the largest mining projects in Quebec. Mr. Journeaux, good day.
Bonjour, good day.
And yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a very big thing that you have there. 3 big projects so far. And let's talk about it. The first project that you have is the DSO project, which is hundreds of millions of tons of iron, which is a one type of iron, and the other project that you have are another type. So let's talk about the first one.
That's correct. The DSO, or direct shipping ores, are ores that were mined earlier in the 50s and up to 1980 by Iron Ore Company of Canada. They were shut down in 1982 because of the quality of the ore was not sufficient for the market, and of course the iron ore prices were low at the time. In the meantime, the prices have gone up, and we have come up with a processing method to increase the grade of the ore from 58% to about 64%.
So 2 reasons: because the price were too low, so it made the product not pure enough. So now
right.
You have a way of purifying, get it more concentrated, and the price is higher. So
That's
it's
right.
worthwhile.
So those are the 2 reasons why the DSO project is quite interesting. Now we have about 65 million tons of proven and probable ore. And we have also other resources. We think we have somewhere in the range of 100 to 120 million tons in that project. Now that project, we made a joint venture with Tata Steel, or as a strategic partner. Tata Steel needed ore in Europe for their European operations, and so they were looking for a supplier, and we were looking for an investor. So the 2 of us came together and we formed this joint venture. It's called Tata Steel Minerals Canada. And we put our properties into the joint venture, our DSO properties, and they put in the money to develop the project. So we have 20% of that joint venture. In other words, we get 20% of the profits. And they put in up $300 million of capital investment, 100% of that, plus 80% of the excess. There will be an excess.
So whatever amount of money they will need to exploit this mine, they will put 80% of the money.
Exactly, 80% after the first 300 million, which is 100%.
Yeah.
So it's a good deal for us. Now they have no captive iron ore supply, and this is one reason why they wanted to join with us. We had the iron ore, and they had the need. And so they're going to take 100% of the product from the DSO. It'll be 4 million tons a year. It starts production early next year, and will eventually, within a year or so, it'll come to full production.
So just DSO itself, at 4 million, you could run this for 25 years.
Yeah, about 20 years, 25 years, yeah. And we have other anomalies that we're looking at, but we're not sure what they will provide. But they're anomalies. They're gravity anomalies that normally would give us more ore.
But that should be enough to start the whole thing. You're talking about 20 years, lots of millions of tons, higher grade because of the way you're going to process it.
Right.
But then you have those 2 other projects that are even much larger than
That's
this.
right. Now the other projects are a different kind of ore. They're a taconite ore. They're quite hard. And they can be upgraded also to a 67 or 68% iron in the concentrate, and in that case they're fine grained. It needs to be ground very fine to be able to separate the silica from the iron, and it's ideal for pellet production, for making pellets, which are a feed to blast furnaces. So they're
but you're not going to produce the pellets, and you're not going to carry them under the pellets form. You want to...
Well, we want to carry them either... We can do it 2 ways. We can do it by pipeline, by ferroduct, where we would pump it.
Mix it with water.
With water as
pump
a slurry.
It down to sept-iles.
Yeah. And the other way to do it is by rail. At the moment, there are railways to the area, but they're quite overloaded. The Quebec North Shore and Labrador has got very high tonnages going over it. So there's talk of a new rail line being built by CN. I think you've probably heard about that.
Because using the actual one, you'd have to deal with at least 3-4 different companies.
That's
because
correct.
not a single company owns the railway.
That's right. There's three separate companies. Yeah, that would
And
own
which
the rail.
ArcelorMittal is one of them.
No, Arcelor is a different railway. It's in a different location.
It's a different way. Okay. Who are those?
Well, pardon me. The first one is the TSH, or Chihuahuan Railway, owned by the First Nations, by the 3 local First Nations. The second one is the Quebec North Shore and Labrador. And the third one is the Chemin de Fer Arnaud, owned by Cliffs.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So Cliff is almost a competitors of yours, so they may not let you very easily use their railroad.
Well, those railways, the Quebec North Shore and Labrador, owned by Rio Tinto, and the CFA, owned by Cliffs, are what we call public carriers or common carriers, and so they're obligated to haul the ore. However, the tariffs are to be negotiated.
Yeah. They will put a price on it also, and you won't have a lot of negotiation power there.
Right, yeah.
So that's why you have to have, in the other hand, the possibility of having a pipeline.
That's right. And originally that's what we planned, but then the Canadian National, CN, with the Caisse de Dépôt, is now talking about doing a study, and we welcome that, and we will be part of that to see which is the best alternative. I mean, what we're looking for is a good transportation system that's economic and that is reliable. And both pipelines and railways, of course, can meet those requirements. The question is, which one is the most economic?
But as far as I'm concerned, it's just a personal opinion, but I'm always more in favor of a train than a pipeline, because in pipeline you can take something off the place, but you don't bring anything up there, because while train brings personal machinery and everything. And if we are to develop the north, I would cross the whole north with a train going north and south and east to west for myself. They did it in Russia. We can do it here too.
Yeah, it's a question of where will the money come from to do that.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's always profit.
Exactly.
It's always that.
But in our case, our taconite projects are very close to Shefferville. They're within 30 to 50 kilometers of Shefferville. Mm-hmm. And there's already a railroad that brings supplies to Shefferville.
Yeah.
And so that's not the issue in this particular case.
Not this one.
Yeah.
But there are many others company in the area. Yeah. The place is red like March Planet over there. There are iron everywhere, and but the pipeline would take quite a long time to build also, because you're starting from scratch out there.
Yeah, but it takes about 2.5 or 3 years to build.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, this is not that I'm promoting the pipeline per se, because we're looking at the rail option, but pipelines are very common for moving iron ore concentrates in Brazil, in Mexico, in India, in China. This is not unusual. There are many of them. There are about probably 20 or 25 operating pipelines in the world today moving iron ore slurries.
But and pipelines needs water also.
They need water, yes.
Crystal clear water of the north to bring the iron down. I like it less, but we'll see. The money will decide for everything.
Well, you have to look at all the aspects: the environment, the money, the cost, the reliability, etc.
Exactly, and the time that it will be used also.
That's right.
And but you also have many other projects, many other place where you can define new resources and everything. So there are so much. What's the percentage of all of the claim that you have out there that have been measured so far?
We've measured roughly with drilling, I would say 20% of the
territory
total range. The Millennium Iron range is 200 kilometers long, 210 kilometers. We've explored about really closer to 30 of that distance. It's roughly 15% to 20% that we've explored, and we now have resources in the order of 14 billion tons, which is very, very large. and we're drilling more, so undoubtedly those numbers will change to the upward side. The Millennium Iron Range is comparable to the Mesabi Iron Range in Minnesota, which has been operating for about 50 years or 60 years. The rock is the same, the process that we will use to do the concentration is the same, so there's nothing really new there in the way of technology, except that today we have better equipment, bigger equipment, more efficient equipment. So our objective is to become the low-cost producer in North America for pellets. And now, again, here we have a partnership with Tata Steel to do the feasibility study, which will be a $50 million study. It'll be completed by the end of this year, and Tata is supporting that at 64%. They're putting about $34 million into that study. So they have the option to proceed or not proceed. We hope that they will decide to go ahead with it, and if they do, with all of the other things that we have to do, including environmental assessment and so on, which is ongoing, by 2017 we should be able to start production. So that's a little bit in the future as compared to our DSO, which will be early next year.
Yeah, but you cannot exploit it all at the same time. It's
Exactly.
just too big.
Yeah.
And the other project is not very far. I think it's just like 50 kilometers away from Shefferville, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all in that general area. We have two well-defined projects for which Tata is working with us. They have options on. One is called LabMag in Labrador, and the other is called KMag in Quebec. They're each, the estimated capital cost of each of these is $5 billion, so it's not, they're not small projects, and we need very robust partners to be able to do it, and that's why Tata Steel is an ideal partner, especially the fact that they need the ore in Europe, which is, and Europe is not very far from Quebec, or from sept-iles. So that's another big advantage to us. Now, in addition to that, we have a lot of other properties that we're currently drilling, and we'll see what that brings. But we're not, we're drilling them to see what we have, and probably next year, the year after, once we get the taconite project with Tata Steel moving, then we'll start looking at the future as to what to do with those. But you know, we can see a very large mining operation coming out of that Millennium Iron Range near Shefferville.
So you are at the moment you are building facilities. You are building a new mill, concentrators,
Right.
and things like that. So far,
Right, that's for the DSO.
for the DSO.
Yeah, yeah.
And when this construction should be completed?
It'll be completed next year. We'll start producing in the early part of the year, next year. We'll do some test mining this year, and we'll ship some product. But the objective is to get the big plant operating early next year, so that we can produce the high quality product and 64.5% iron, and ship that to through by rail to sept-iles and then on to Tata Steel in Europe. Tata Steel takes 100% of that DSO production.
Yeah, they will use it all. They need more than what you can produce there actually.
right.
So you're going to carry this at first by train to sept-iles,
Right.
where you have invested in a new deep water port, I guess.
That's correct. The Port of Sept-Iles Authority is building a deep water dock, and we've invested in that. We have put $38 million, in fact, into it, which for 15 million tons of guaranteed supply, guaranteed movement, and out of the 50. So, you know, we have roughly 30% of the total capacity of that deep water dock. And so this is essential to us to develop the taconite project. We need that dock so that we can ship in large vessels.
So those vessels should be bigger than the one that we can see here in the St. Lawrence River, don't they? They are much deeper.
Much bigger,
They could go to sept-iles and load it and.
Well, they can go beyond sept-iles, but further west. But the facts are that there are 360,000 ton vessels and some 400,000 ton vessels that we could ship from, that we could use to ship our product. Because going to Asia, for instance, means that you have to have the larger vessels to keep the freight cost per ton down. To Europe, you don't need as large, but you need certainly Cape-sized up in the 250,000 ton level to keep the freight prices competitive.
So you, so your target is to get the first DSO project up and running and in profit,
Yeah.
and then move on to the other project after.
That's right. By the time we get DSO up and moving, the taconite project will be in the decision stage to go ahead. Probably a decision will be made sometime around the middle of next year to go ahead with the actual construction, engineering and construction of the taconite project, of one of the two. And then later the second one will come in. And so we have, plans for many, many years ahead so that we exploit or we use the resources in the Millennium Iron Range in the most effective manner. And this area will become one of the large producing areas in the world for iron ore. I mean, there are bigger ones in Brazil and Australia, but in Canada and North America, this has the potential to be by far the biggest in this North America.
So this is all the time we had, Mr. Journeaux, and we're very pleased that you came to explain us all of the project. It's one of the most important projects in Quebec. I really like that thing. And I think the people around Sept-Iles and Schefferville must be in love with you too, that you are bringing jobs and all kind of stuff out there, so that will make this region revive.
Well, we're all excited in making that happen. I lived many years in that area, about 17 of my career years in the north, in Gagnon and Port-Cartier, Fermont, etc.
Yeah.
And so it's an objective that we're trying to see happen to improve not just the quality of life there, but also the quality of everybody that's involved in this. Our shareholders, myself personally, I'm a fairly large shareholder. And so we're all interested in making this thing happen and to the benefit of everybody, including the First Nations, of course the governments, because they will collect taxes and royalties. In other words, everybody has an interest in making this thing happen, and we're committed to doing that.
Mr. Journeaux, we wish you very good luck with this project. It's very interesting, and do not hesitate to send us any information when you have them. We'll be pleased to forward it to our viewer. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Carignan.
Thank you.
Thank you.